I'm Nico Gallardo. I'm doing community at Octant. And today I'm going to talk about funding open source with DeFi. And first, I'm going to start with a bit of history of what we've done with, let's say, the first version of Octant and how we've been funding public goods using yield from staking rewards, running our own nodes. And later, after, I'm going to talk a little bit about how we're opening this up so that other ecosystems can do the same with DeFi and hopefully kind of expand this model and like seed it in different ecosystems. So at Octant V1, we staked 100,000 ETH that came from the Golem Foundation. And we've been, we run our own node operations that generate yield, and we redistribute the yield in 3 different categories. The first one goes, we have a token called GLM, and a part of the rewards go to our users that are GLM lockers. Then the second part of the yield goes to a matching fund, and the third part goes to our own operations and growth of the project. And to illustrate this a little bit better, can you hear me all right, by the way? Yeah? Okay, perfect. And so this is how Octant V1 worked. We have, as I mentioned, Golem Foundation, who gave 100,000 ETH to stake and pays rewards through the Octant app. And the ETH rewards go to our GLM lockers. Those are our Octant users. And the rest goes into a matching fund. And the matching fund, every epoch, every round, let's say we pick 30 projects that are going to receive funding. And the way this funding is allocated is via this via quadratic funding. Is everyone here familiar with quadratic funding? Yes? Okay. No? So basically, quadratic funding in a nutshell is a way of voting that disincentivizes whales to, let's say, overfund one project because they have more tokens, instead of favoring a project that receives a lot of, like, a big amount of donations. It favors projects that receives donations from a larger amount of players, let's say. So let's say a project that receives 100,000 in votes or donations to receive the matching fund from a single party receives a lot less than a project that receives 100,000 from 100,000 different people. Each donates $1 from the matching fund. So that's basically it in a nutshell. We can clarify that later, but the way the voting works in our case is via the individual rewards that the Octant GLM lockers receive. So they can either withdraw it to themselves as individual rewards, or they can donate it, and thus, if they donate it, it's going to be matched by, I don't know, sometimes a 500x because of the size of the matching fund. It's we have like all our metrics are open source. I can send it to you later, so I can show you. But like in short, there's a lot of whales like from back in the from the ICO who like didn't agree that much with the path, and that is their way to sort of exit. So they prefer to like just claim their individual rewards. So a lot of time, and sometimes they just don't like. A lot of people are not really interested in the round theme. So there's a lot of variation between like how many people claim the individual rewards and how many people allocate. But there's always a few whales that skew it a little bit more towards the individual rewards because of this baggage that we carry from like the Golem days. But it's still pretty interesting amount of people who donate. Like we normally have between, let's say it's been 200 and 400 users who donate their rewards. So we've run 10 epochs, 10 funding rounds. Each epoch has between 20 and 30 projects, as I mentioned earlier. And many of these projects repeat epoch after epoch. We're going to see those projects in a second. But in total, we've funded 126 unique projects ranging from Ethereum core infrastructure to Ethereum marketeers to even like we did an experiment with a climate round for climate related projects. So in total, we funded, let's say, more than 10 million in ETH, and around 5 million went to rewards. So maybe like this is also that can show you what's the split between individual rewards and funded amount. And the projects that we funded are probably familiar to some of you here. A lot of them are very core to the Ethereum development. As Leah mentioned just before me, it's not here, but Argo and Solidity have been, well, Argo more recently because they just created it, but like in the past, Solidity has been a grantee. And of course, like Protocol Guild, Ethereum Cut Herders, HyperSearch, Open Source Observer.
What's the top one? I feel like I know all the logos.
That's HyperSearch. L2B. Yeah, I should write their names actually. Yeah. So in the last epochs, because we've been shifting more and more towards Ethereum alignment, and we wanna, we see, as Leah mentioned also earlier, that there's not infinite funding that's gonna come from the Ethereum Foundation. It's eventually gonna wind down. We need to find ways to coordinate and keep funding the machine that keeps us running, basically. So we've been shifting, like the last epochs have been a lot more focused on Ethereum alignment. And beyond that, now I'm gonna talk a little bit about the new version that we're building, because we asked ourselves, okay, how can we enable other Ethereum aligned ecosystems to do the same, to, let's say, park their treasury somewhere and just generate yield and use that yield to fund open source or fund their own ecosystem. Sometimes, we just want to make it open source as well so that people can decide what they want to do. If they don't want to fund open source, it's fine, but we tend to encourage that, and we're going to keep encouraging funding Ethereum aligned public goods, let's say. So the opportunity that we saw is like pretty similar to what happened to Golem Foundation. Had a treasury sitting idle, not generating any yield, and was bleeding from funding grants and not being very efficient. So that made growth stall while the funding was really unsustainable. It was going to die down eventually. So, and at the same time, and this can happen in many ecosystems. And at the same time, we already have a pretty mature set of DeFi tools and also resource allocation tools like the one I mentioned, quadratic funding, or many other allocation mechanisms that exist out there. So we thought maybe we can do the same. Instead of like only staking ETH and generating yield, maybe we can expand it to other yield generating strategies like DeFi, and use the DeFi to fund grant programs. Who would have thought? Like it's not a very genius idea, but like someone had to build it, and that means funding ecosystems without exhausting treasuries, and also flexibility on how to allocate those funds. If you want to do like community-based, more quadratic funding, you can do it. But if you want to like still stay in charge, let's say with a committee or something like that, you can still do that.
Can I make a bad joke? Go back to that slide.
Yes.
I would be wary of using leverage.
Oh, yeah.
It's like you unlock, and the first thing is like leverage.
Leverage yield. Yeah. Degens meet regions. So yeah, in a nutshell, this is protocolizing Octant V1 as a ecosystem growth engine. And to explain it briefly, how Octant V2 works is any DAO or foundation's treasury can be parked into an Octant vault, and Octant vaults can use any DeFi strategy out there because like it's very easy to integrate. We use, for those who know, ERC 4626, that is like the Yearn v3 vault standard, basically. Like it's our vaults are a fork of Yearn, a friendly fork of Yearn, and and the yield that you generate can be, well, withdrawn at any time, but it can also be allocated with any allocation mechanism that exists out there. We're gonna keep adding more mechanisms. Right now we're working on the quadratic funding one, and a committee-based one, and also streaming quadratic funding, which is more like continuous way of funding things, still using the quadratic formula. So yeah, this means perpetual growth for the DAO and the ecosystem. At the same time, this is something we want to encourage internally, is anyone who uses Octant, maybe suggest them to donate at least 5% of the yield that they generate to embody alignment towards Ethereum, and make sure to solve the problem of funding Ethereum goods. And the governance of this Ethereum sustainability fund would be proportional to the amount that's contributed. So if people want to contribute a lot more than 5%, then that means they also get higher decision power. So Octant V2 connects capital accumulation with capital allocation while engaging community members to shape ecosystem growth. And users in the community also get governance rights if that's decided by the ecosystem. So yeah, this is how we see the world. Sustainable growth means capital formation with capital allocation sprinkled with a little bit of Ethereum alignment. We don't need to go too deep into that, but like the two parts that compose Octant V2 is the capital formation side, which is we launched last week. It's our vaults that you can basically, as I mentioned earlier, just integrate any DeFi strategy and use the yield that's generated from it to start building a pool. And soon, in a few weeks, we're going to launch the allocation mechanisms that you can use to allocate the yield that's generated there. So yeah, this is just showing how Yearn works. And the difference between like what we've modified from Yearn is basically in Yearn, like the depositors receive the yield, but with Octant, you can the yield goes to a splitter contract, and then you can decide where this goes to. So as we've been doing in the past, funding public goods, we're gonna keep doing this, but with this new mechanism that we've built. And some other DAOs have already passed proposals to use it to fund their own ecosystems and keep fostering open source. So yeah, like the benefits are that your principal, like the initial investment is protected, and the yield is managed very transparently without any like capture risks on the initial investment from different ecosystems. And yeah, allocation mechanisms, as I mentioned, goes to a splitter contract, and the admin of the splitter contract can decide which mechanism is used. And in open source, we are pretty much used to the quadratic funding model, but I'm really excited to try out, which is like a little bit more round based. So it starts at a point and it ends at a different point. And this is also something we were trying to experiment with streaming quadratic funding, where you can set up a stream of votes, let's say, or donations that also with a matching fund that also streams funds there and does it more continuously.
May I ask a quick question? Like,
yeah.
What's the logic behind this quadratic formula, which favors individual donors? Because in the end, it could match up, right? Like you can get the same amount from like 5 larger, like what's behind it?
Yeah. So what is meant here is like the allocation, the distribution of the allocation is, let's say, more fair, because instead of a whale deciding to donate so you have the matching fund and you have the individual donors. So instead of one individual donor skewing where all the matching funds go to because they have a lot of money, like the matching fund gets distributed a little bit more equally between the projects, because they receive, like the quadratic formula benefits those who have like more votes over more like a higher amount of money donated as a vote, let's say. Is that, it's sometimes like a little bit complicated to explain.
It's just me.
No, definitely not. Like QF is pretty hard to explain. No, it's
But
raining hard.
let's say so if you have like a big company X, whatever,
Yeah.
like donating, yes, and then you have like, I don't know, 1,000 people. So basically, they donate the same amount of the 1,000 people donated. So it's just more how those funds are distributed, or like, because like to me they will be still like distributed like equally or not.
So, and this is also something that's I forgot to mention. Like you have to think of a set of projects that need to receive funding. So let's say 10 projects that receive funding, and then so instead of a single project X is like A B C D E H F, and the distribution of like how the money is distributed to those projects from the matching fund is decided by the individual donations of other people, basically. So people vote on which project gets funding out of a set of projects. And the quadratic formula makes sure that like if one of these individuals is extremely like wealthy and wants to like try to skew the donation flow towards one project, that they cannot do that. Like that the projects that receive more funding from more people receive more funding.
How would it be that one? How would it be that someone who is like wealthy can like decide about?
Right. So in a normal voting, let's say token voting, right? This is about token voting. If there,
You can overpower the
yeah,
others.
exactly. If you're a whale and you decide to vote for one, then like all the matching funds are gonna go to that one, and the other ones are gonna stay like without funding, basically.
Right.
Thank you for helping explain it better. Yeah, so I'm excited to try some other mechanisms as well that are being currently explored in the ecosystem. And yeah, so if you're interested in building interesting DeFi strategies for these treasuries or for people to donate to their ecosystems or projects, reach out to me. Or if you're a DAO or foundation who wants to use it, please reach out. Or if you are a project and want to like need funding and want to advocate for using this system that's a little bit easier to sell to sponsors or investors, we're always happy to chat. And yeah, you can always DM me any questions or comments, and we'd love to hear any comments here or questions that you have.